cares for. And sometimes we don't often see those reasons to love those people, do we? Isn't it easy to judge a book by its cover? To look at the outside and to decide what's on the inside? But that's not always the case, is it? Kelly, can I pick on you a little bit this morning? You know, Kelly had a lot of trouble with his eyes. And he had surgery to get one of his cataracts fixed. And he came home from the doctor, and the doctor said, they went back, and the doctor said, you can do good. Kelly said, can I mow grass? And he said, well, yeah, but where are your glasses? So Kelly was out there mowing grass, and I stopped by to see Kelly. And Juanita said he's over there mowing grass at his mama's house. Now, they'd been renting his mama's house out, and the folks that lived in Kelly's mama's house didn't take the best care of his mama's house. So Kelly was over there at his mama's mowing grass, and I rode over there on my motorcycle to see Kelly. And when Kelly saw me, his face just fell. And he stopped at me, and I waved. I said, come on over here. And he rode up a little closer, and I took my helmet off. He said, oh, Mike, I'm glad it's you. I thought it was a motorcycle gang coming in here to rent this house, and I just thought they were coming here and tear this house completely down. You know, you can't judge a book by its cover. Kelly said, Mike, I'll be glad for you to come live in the house. He was, you know, but you can't judge a book by its cover. You cannot look at a person and tell how they feel on the inside. You cannot look at a person and know the battles that they're fighting. You cannot look at a person and see their values and their morals and so forth. You've got to get to know that person. And maybe what we need to do as Christians is learn to look harder and deeper. Next Sunday's going to be Friends Sunday. And I'm going to tell you what. I hope that when I stand up here next Sunday and I look out, I hope I see some rough-looking folks out there. I hope I see some folks that really need the Lord. And you know what I just did when I said that? I judged the book by its cover, didn't I? Because, you know, some of the nicest-looking folks you'll ever see are as rotten on the inside as they possibly can be. But I hope that you'll invite your friends and neighbors to come to church. And I hope that we'll invite people who really need the Lord, regardless of what the cover of the book looks like. Jesus said it was the sick who needed a doctor. So we don't know a whole lot about this paralyzed man other than he was paralyzed. What about the men who brought the paralytic to Jesus? What do we know about them? Again, not very much. Luke says that some men came carrying the paralytic. Mark tells us that some came and 4 men carried him. I always thought it was just 4. Not necessarily. It says some. Now that could mean there were 4, or there were 5, or there were 6, or there were 8, or there were 10, or there were even more. We really don't know how many there were. We really don't know where they came from. Now, we can guess they were from Capernaum, where this event took place. But that's really just a guess. Maybe they had been following Jesus all around trying to catch up with him. You know, it would take more time and effort to carry a man on a pallet than it would to just walk along yourself. And maybe every time they got where Jesus was, he had already moved on because he was just walking along and they were having to carry their friend. We don't know. But we can rest assured that they loved this one man. Why is that? Because they went through a lot of trouble to get their friend to Jesus, didn't they? They picked him up. They carried him to where Jesus was. They saw something in this man. We don't know what. They saw something in this man they loved. Remember what we said before? Everybody is loved by somebody. They saw something there that they loved. And in verse 20 it says they had faith in Jesus. Jesus saw their faith. Not the paralyzed man's faith, but his friend's faith. Now, just imagine the scene when they arrived at that house. The place was packed. Pharisees and teachers of the law were sitting up there in the most important seats because they were the most important people, undoubtedly. And maybe there were other dignitaries, local dignitaries there as well. And they were all lined up in a proper pecking order. And then other people had came in, common folks, and they were crowded in as best they could. They were sitting wherever they could find a spot. They were standing wherever they could squeeze in. But it was a standing room only crowd in that house. And even in the doors and windows, people were so packed in that you couldn't get close. They wanted to hear what Jesus was saying. Now, I can almost imagine those men's faces falling when they saw that. Here we have carried this man to Jesus and we can't even get in. Not only could we not push our way through, but we can't very well carry a pallet through that crowd of folks. I suspect they were discouraged, disappointed. Maybe they were ready to quit, give up, go back home. And then somebody had an idea about the roof. Now, houses were built differently back then than they are today. And they were built differently in that neck of the woods than they are here. Houses in that day were basically had flat roofs, and it was used like a patio up there. There would be a set of steps up one side of the house so you could get up on the roof. The walls were built, and then beams were laid across, and they put branches from trees across, and then they put mud and dirt up there to fill in between the branches, and clay and whatever kind of mud they could get to fill it in, and pack it down and make it hard. And they put it from the bottom and the top, stick it up in there. And then they would put tiles up there to smooth it out, more or less, and to run the rainwater off. It's a flat roof. Well, these fellas climbed up on the roof. They went up the steps. And can you imagine what happened next? Can you imagine the noise that those folks on the inside heard as those men on the roof started ripping those tiles up? Can you imagine those folks on the inside as the dirt and the leaves and the sticks and the plaster and the mud started falling down on their heads? Can you imagine the sun all of a sudden shining in through that hole that was in the roof, and the little hole just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and stuff just falling in? And can you imagine a pallet appearing in that hole and then being let down in front of Jesus? You see, those men had faith to bring their friend to Jesus. Why in the world would they do that if they didn't think Jesus was going to do something about it? And I wonder, do we have that kind of faith? Do we think Jesus can make a difference in the life of our friends? Are we willing to pull out all the stops, do whatever it takes to get our friends to Jesus? Because you know what? If we don't, they're really not our friends, are they? We really don't care that much about them. And then if you look in verses 25 and 26, you see that the paralytic man carried his mat home. Why was this man healed? Verse 20 makes it clear that it was his friend's faith. They believed that by bringing their friend to Jesus, something could happen. Had they already tried everything they could think of? I'm sure they had. I'm sure they had taken him to every doctor. I'm sure they had tried every medicine. I'm sure they had tried every treatment. I'm sure they had tried every cure. I'm sure they tried every suggestion that everybody had. And they know that Jesus is the only answer they've got left. I wonder how they heard about Jesus. Had they heard him teach before? Had they seen him teach? Had one of them been healed by Jesus? We don't have any way of knowing. But these men have great faith, and Jesus sees it. Now, the important part is this. Their faith became his faith. Their faith became his faith. And I wonder how that transfer was made. Was it like a bolt of lightning? Took place in an instant? Boom. All of a sudden it was there. One moment the man had no faith, and the next moment he did. I know things happen like that, but it seems to be the exception rather than the rule. Or did this man's faith grow slowly from watching and listening to his friends? Did he hear them talk about Jesus? Did he hear them repeat the stories that they had heard Jesus say? Did he hear them repeat the teachings that Jesus had given? Did he see the change in their lives as they became more and more committed to following Jesus? Did he recognize it in the lengths that they were willing to go to get him to Jesus? I think most of the time faith grows slowly. And it needs a lot of fertilizer if it's going to grow. And that key fertilizer for faith and evangelism is love. To care for people. People we need to know that we love and that we accept them. And they have to see us as willing to put our love into action for them. They have to know that we care, and we have to show them that. And we need to make sure that that other person understands our love. Sometimes we've got to tell them that in different ways. People are different. They've got different feelings, different emotions. They hear things in different ways. They have different temperaments. But everybody needs to be loved. And then it says that the paralytic left praising God. He didn't just get up and walk away, but he left with faith. He left praising God. Their faith became his faith. That's the important part. Obviously, he was walking, and that was something to be thankful for, but Jesus had also forgiven his sin. And isn't that far greater blessing? Had you rather be forgiven or had you rather be healed? I don't think there's much choice in that. You know, how long can a person be paralyzed? All their life, right? Depends on how old they are, but all their life. But the eternity that a person spends without God is far longer, and it is far worse. And we need to do everything we can to get our friends to Jesus. Now, when we had our planning meeting back June, July, whenever it was, I didn't realize that the whole world was going to steal our idea of Friends Sunday and call it Back to Church Sunday. You know, that's what next Sunday is. Back to Church Sunday. Everybody's doing it. But honestly, we need to be inviting people to church every opportunity we get, not just waiting for a once a year or some special occasion. But we need to make the most of those opportunities and not let those opportunities slip away. Like I said, we are planning some special things for next week, and I hope and pray that you've been hoping and praying about next week as well. Invite somebody to church with you. Invite them to come and sit with you in church. A lot of times, for somebody who comes to church the first time, that's a tough one. Who do you sit with when you don't know anybody? And I invited somebody to come to church one time. I said, you can sit with me if you want to, but I sit up here. And you may not want to sit up here. You know, I'll let you sit with my wife or the family, but let them sit with you. You know, like I mentioned Wilbur Chapman earlier, I did go back and look through those healings that Jesus performed and those miracles that Jesus performed in the New Testament. I couldn't find 40 of the same ones. I don't even think I found 40 healings altogether. But I do know that most of them happened because somebody brought that person to Jesus. Or somebody took Jesus to that person. Now, there were a few that stumbled on Jesus all on their own. But most of the time, somebody introduced Jesus to that person. And in our world today, when people come to salvation, it's still that same way. Most people are introduced to Jesus by somebody.